Welkom by hierdie eerste uitgawe van 'n reeks praatjies oor die probleme wat kleinsaake eienaars ondervind. My naam is Hendrik Kreer. Ek is een van die woordvoerders vir die DA in die kleinsaake ontwikkelingskomitee in die parlement. My eerste gas vandag is Michael Bagram, 'n vriend van my, as ook 'n kollega. Hy is die woordvoerder vir arbeid in die parlement vir die DA. Michael, baie welkom en baie dankie vir jou bereidwilligheid om 'n bietjie met ons te gesels vandag. Michael, as jy vandag vir ons 'n bietjie kan sê en vertel oor die werkloosheidsversekering en veral die uitbetalings van TERS. Waar staan die departement met dit? Dankie, Michael.
Thank you, the Honourable Henro Kruger. Thank you very much for having me. I'm the Labour spokesperson for the Democratic Alliance in the South African Parliament, and I welcome this opportunity to speak to Henro Kruger about small business and the problems they're experiencing with the UIF, the Unemployment Insurance Fund. We're going to see those problems again, and we can touch on it a little bit later with workmen's compensation. But just to go backwards a little bit, we come from a rather nasty history in the sense that we are the worst unemployment rate in the world prior to the lockdown. Prior to the lockdown, we were at 10 million unemployed South Africans who wanted jobs. They said it was the worst in the world. And in fact, our Treasury have shown us that we've been shrinking jobs-wise every single quarter for the last 9 years. And that's quite a bad history to go into. Then when the lead up to this lockdown because of the COVID-19, in the lead up we had various problems. First of all, we had electrical problems where the government had failed us and Eskom had collapsed. And also what we had at this point was we had a real problem in that because of Eskom, many businesses started breaking down as well, and especially small business. So the Honourable Henro Kruger will tell you the problems that he's experienced over the last few years with regard to small business. What we also seen is that we then went into another problem, and that was a drought across a lot of the country, and that drought also affected small business in particular. And then over and above that, they introduced a pernicious piece of legislation called the Minimum Wage Act. And that Minimum Wage Act also led to, we think it was about 800,000 jobs lost over that as well. And that put pressure on not only the Department of Employment and Labour, but all the other departments, because obviously small business was collapsing. Then on top of all those nasty things such as electricity, drought, and wage determinations, we then go into COVID-19 and probably the world's longest lockdown. We've just seen the horrible event of 100 days after this longest lockdown. So what the president had promised, and it's always nice to promise, it's not so good to deliver, but what the president Ramaphosa did promise South Africa is that everyone would get at least 3 months worth of emergency funding from the UIF. Remember, that's not government's money. That money belongs to the employees and the employers. And of course, who suffers the most if they don't deliver is small business. And that's why we're talking about it today, because the UIF was an absolute nightmare from the beginning. You will recall that South Africa locked down in the last week of March 2020, and it was supposed to go live in that last week of March. Of course, they didn't. And then they said everyone must apply via email. That wasn't working. It was closed. And laughably, or maybe sadly, the Department of Labour saw that their UIF itself could close down. They went home. They said, no, they weren't an emergency service and they could close down. So no one could go in there. And many of the workers in South Africa, thousands of workers in South Africa, don't have connectivity. They then changed their tune and said, okay, businesses must apply on behalf of the workers, maybe a bit brighter. At that point, one of our colleagues very carefully then said, Dr. Michael Cordo said that maybe they should hand over the functioning to the SARS, to the South African Revenue Services, because SARS were the people who could actually receive the money. They knew all the problems that existed. They've got a very good process. And we called on the Minister of Employment and Labour, Thulas Nkezi, to actually come forward and start using SARS to hand out the money. Well, small businesses will tell you at this point, they were suffering really badly. They don't have the money to pay their staff. They didn't have the money to keep people with some food on the table. And the Department of Employment and Labour's website kept collapsing. Their systems kept collapsing. No one answered telephones. And so we had ongoing problems throughout this process. Some people were paid wrong. A lot of people, businesses received money, had no accounting, weird as it may seem. And of course, because of that, they didn't know who to pay out. And so we have an ongoing problem right throughout this process. So we had almost 3 months of nightmare, absolute nightmare. I know that I've been working throughout the process. We're getting about 250 to 300 emails a day, get phone calls all day. I must admit, I pushed a lot of these queries onto Brother Henro Kruger to try and sort this out for me, because small businesses were dying. And we must remember, and Honorable Kruger will tell you, that at this point in South Africa, the real engine room of job creation is small business, not big business. They've been shrinking for years anyway. They've been mechanizing, computerizing, and changing their systems. So big business hasn't been the answer to our problems in South Africa. We need to employ more people. Where we are at the moment, and of course, at the end of each month, they said you can claim for this month, which is a bit weird and topsy-turvy, because they waited till the end of each month, so the end of March, the end of April, end of May. They said claim for May, the end of May. And they kept saying, well, the computers are down, a cable is broken, they had problems, I don't know. They kept coming with excuses. And of course, to this day, we've got problems with people getting paid out. Some staff get paid, some don't. No explanation. Foreigners effectively didn't get paid. Some people who they said there were mistakes with their IDs, all sorts of problems, every excuse under the sun, to the extent that they even blaming business and saying it's business. They're getting the money and they're not handing it out to their staff. We've asked the minister to name and shame these businesses, but of course it hasn't come forward. So sorry to give you that litany of real sadness, real problems, an absolute broken Department of Employment and Labour. They have let down the people of South Africa. They've let down the workers. Over to you, Henro.
Michael, baie dankie vir die goeie slegte nuus. En ek dink al ons klein sake het hierdie probleme ondervind, is besig om dit te ondervind, maar ons moet maar net klein sake maar net doen wat hulle altyd gedoen het en hulle kan dit goed doen. En dit is om geld te maak. So kom ons gaan uit en maak geld.